Hey, welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the weekly live webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with the mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, and BlueCap Productions. Tune in every Wednesday and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our October 2021 show. We're really glad that you can join us today. We're thrilled to see you online, and we're looking forward to a great program. For those of you tuning in for the first time, congratulations. You found Mineral Talks Live, the best hour-ish mineral talk show on the internet. Today is Wednesday, October 6th, and we've missed you. Now, Mineral Talks Live is the monthly talk show where we sit down with people from all facets of the mineral world to learn about what they do, who they are, and yes, occasionally we even show you some incredible minerals. And we are going to do that today. I'm Brian Swoboda, the president of BlueCap Productions, and together we're the best partners anyone can ever have, Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP. We are the Mineral Talks Live team. This is our 54th show, and throughout it all, we have been incredibly honored to sit down and chat with our mineral world's curatrix, curators, collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and media people. We have had an incredibly fun time, and we are so thankful that so many of you have been along for the ride. Now, without you, we wouldn't have a show, and the first Wednesdays of every month would be just like all the others. So thank you for watching. Click the like button below, and be sure to tell a friend about the best mineral talk show in the world. But you know what makes it the best? You and your participation. This isn't just a conversation between me and our guests. Everybody gets to be a part of this, and you can do that through either the chat feature or the Q&A feature, both of which are located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, the chat feature allows you to type messages to everyone watching the live show. As we're all about community, when you first sign on, go ahead and fire off a hello to everyone telling us where you're from. Also, if you have general thoughts or comments during the show, this is where you can post them and interact with each other while we're talking. Usually our guests and I aren't able to read those comments, but never fear, Raquel and Eloise will be very active in the chat and may even interject a question or two to us during the interview. Okay, so what if you have a really burning question and you want to ask, but it's a little bit off topic from what we're talking about at the moment? Well, in that case, go ahead and type it in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to get to that at the end of the show. Finally, at about 40 minutes into the program, you'll see a window pop up on the screen asking a bunch of questions for our Quickfire 5 segment. This is where we'll get to see how well you know our guests. And yes, we play along too, as we're not even sure of all the answers to the questions we ask. So that's how we play. I've already done enough talking, which Raquel is happy to point out. So let's get on with the show. Today, we're focusing our lens on Central Europe as we visit Budapest and the country of Hungary. Our guest for today is not only an extremely talented photographer, he's also one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. László Kupi to the show. László, how are you, my friend?
Thank you very much, Brian. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here with you this day, and I really appreciate to see my names among this very prominent list. So thank you very much.
You are too humble, László. How's the weather out there right now?
Well, actually, I'm in Norway.
You're in Norway right now?
Norway, yes. The weather is actually
was all off.
I can take a quick look. It's beautiful outside. It's getting dark now, but we had a very good field day, and the weather was very calm and nice compared to the previous one. So yes, it's not snowing yet.
Well, that's good. That's good. Now, László, I want to talk to you about two things today, photography and minerals. But before we get to that, maybe something that not a lot of people know, and you just kind of alluded to it, is that you're a working geologist. Tell us a little bit about what you do in your, quote, real job.
Yes, of course. So yes, I'm an exploration geologist, means I'm working on in the field mainly on different ore mineralization, like mainly in copper, gold, and other mainly ore minerals. And this time of the year, we are here in Norway, spending 2 times 4 weeks in the field, mapping and then drilling a wonderful titanium mineralization. And I took a piece of massive titanium ore, which you probably know or recognize from its shine. It's ilmenite, it's pure ilmenite, but it's just a piece of chunk of rock. And the main mineralization is over millions of tons of this kind of ore. But mineralogically, it's not that interesting, unfortunately. Although in some pegmatite veins, I found some nice zircon crystals, and I will show you later some anorthosite piece with lovely anorthite crystals, like called labradorite. So yes, I'm working in a geology business mainly. That's how I connected to the minerals as well.
Now that's fantastic. So focusing on photography first, tell us about when you first picked up a camera, what camera it was, and what was it about photography where you said, I have to do more of this?
Oh yeah, it's back in when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I got a camera from my grandfather. It was an analog camera called Zenit. It's a Russian camera, very massive, relatively small, and it worked with film. So it took a while to get used to it and to work out how it works. And it cost a lot for my parents to develop all the films, and most of them were out of focus, and all these flowers from side, from the top, from the bottom, and insects. And by the time I got used to it and I started to think more like a hobby, then it turned to a profession after all. During my university years, I graduated photography school, and I bought my first, let's say, serious camera, which was a Canon EOS 300, which is a film camera. So I developed myself the films and I magnified them. It was really a fun. But after the world has turned into digital, so I had to take a step forward. And I've bought a couple of cameras and lenses till I got my choice, actually. And now I'm very happy with it.
So you actually studied photography and you graduated as a photographer. What was your kind of drive? Did you think you would go into like fashion photography or landscape photography, or kind of more focus on being an artist? Unravel that a little bit for us.
Yes, in the very beginning, I shoot everything. Like everyone started photography, like portraits, landscapes, flowers, animals, everything. And then there was a time when I just realized that you cannot be in everything. You just need to choose something which you can be relatively good in, and leave the rest for the photographers, for the rest of photographers, actually. And that's how minerals came into the picture, because I loved them since I was a child, actually. And I started to shoot minerals, but it came later, like 10 years ago, something like that. And
okay,
they were so rudimentary, like the lighting were so harsh, and the focus stacking was unknown that time, or at least
right.
I didn't know how to work. I used very basic lighting, very basic resolution on my camera. It was like a 20D at that time, like a Canon EOS 20D, which has an 8 megapixel, which is ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous these days.
That was huge back then.
A normal camera, yeah, exactly. It was a very expensive and a huge resolution that time. But now, when most of the phones are able to shoot in 100 megapixel, 50 megapixel, although who is into the photography a little bit knows that it's not that true. But actually, yes, if I compare my earliest photos with the resolution of the cameras and the capability of the cameras available nowadays, even in the lower section, like a very beginner or entry section, it's just a really huge step has been taken since. So it's enormous amount of technology came into available.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so you were studying photography and you started photographing minerals about 10 years ago, you said. 10 years ago? Right.
Yes, there were the first steps or the first trying 10 years ago. And there was a big gap between.
Sure. Somewhere in between there, you became a geologist and you became interested in minerals, probably the other way around. You became interested in minerals and then you studied geology. Kind of illuminate us on what happened there.
Yes, exactly the other way around, because I started collecting minerals when I was about 5, 6. The first pieces.
Wow. So you were very young. What was the first mineral?
I can't really remember the very first one because my grandfather, we were talking about when we met first in Munich. Right. And my grandfather was a mineral collector and he was a miner as well. And I grew up in front of his cabinets. So the minerals were implanted in my genes. It was not escaped from the mineral world. And actually, I got the bug bitten when I was just very, very young. So I don't even remember when it happened. My father was also a mineral collector. So we went out for summer holidays, hiking the mountains and looking for some minerals. And probably a piece of gypsum I found very, very early. And it was just nothing, not even mentionable that time, but I was very happy and I was shocked that I found something. And there was no out from this train, and it was just keep grabbing me for entire life, and I was collecting for the whole time. Although during the university time and my first jobs, I didn't really have an opportunity to find real minerals because in the mine, you probably have a good chance to find something. But in the field, especially in the jungles and deserts, where everything is kind of green field, so there's no operation, right. Just jungle and mud, and we have to drill to find something. You barely have any chance to find good minerals. But after a while, I came back every now and then. I found something which was interesting, and I took with me back home, and my collection started to evolve.
So when did you switch career courses from photography to geology?
I was graduated geologist just right when I graduated as a photographer. So I did it as a side study, and I just chosen geology because it probably gave me a bit more opportunity to travel. And that time I was free and I was single, so I was able to travel as much as I wanted. Since I have a family, it's a bit different because I have a daughter now. Yeah, and she's very young. So the COVID made me a good opportunity to stay a bit more longer with my family than I expected, to be honest. And
totally get it. That's the one positive thing we can say about COVID. It's allowed us to spend a lot more time with our families.
Yes. That was the good part of the COVID, but because of that, I had to postpone a lot of travel and jobs as well.
Certainly. Now, László, you had mentioned when you were talking about your grandfather that we had discussed this when we were in Munich, and that's when I first met you, 2019. I found your stuff online and I reached out to you, and then Alan Hart and I arranged an interview with you for What's Hot in Munich 2019. Tell us what you've been up to since then.
I think it's almost 2 years has passed since we first met, and 1.5 years was just right about the COVID, unfortunately. So I've been booked by a lot of nice collectors and friends of mine who I'm going to visit recently and in the very close future. Like I'm having a planned route to Germany, to England, and probably to the States about the Tucson show time. So yes, everything is on the bucket list, but in the last 1.5 years was really hard for everyone, and including me. And the only window where when I could probably travel was the birth of my daughter. So I was being with my family at home.
Of course.
So yes, it was a hard time, but we are out of it and looking forward to the bright future.
Absolutely. Well, I know you've done a lot of great work for people all over Europe, including my great brother Gerhard Wagner, who's watching today. So what I'd love to do now is I'd love to kind of shift and get to some of the eye candy. You provided us a bunch of photographs, and you've kind of broken them into different segments according to categories. So why don't we start with the first category, what you have deemed as colors. Are you ready for the first one that you can talk to us a little bit about?
Go ahead, please.
Tell us about this beauty.
Okay, this is one of the first shoot I took for Gerhard, a good friend of mine as well. And what is amazing about this piece is the color. It's the deepest amethyst color I've ever seen in my life from Namibia. And to shoot out these very almost black amethyst was just really challenging. So it needs a strong backlight, and it was really a hard job to make the faces shiny, to look shiny, and the colors to look exactly the same as it should be. So Gerhard provided me a proper lamp, and there was a piece holding in my hand, and the other hand was on the mouse to get the same color and saturation as it is in the real life. So it was really an amazing piece. I loved it. And we all know that Namibia provided Arango a lot of absolutely gorgeous amethysts, and this was probably my favorite.
Now, do you use strobes or do you use continuous lighting?
I actually use both, but for traveling, I set up a kind of a traveling kit, which is lightweight, not that bulky as the strobes are, because for the strobes, you need a lot of light formations, like soft boxes and like all these diffusers. So it's much better to travel without those, and I swapped into a traveling kit, which contains a very stable tripod, a motorized gear of like a rail, like an electric rail, which I'm able to do a stack shot with. Cool. Of course, my notebook, lenses, all the adapters, and of course the light and all the light formation.
Sure, the light modifiers. So yes, you're working primarily in Europe. Is there the potential of you doing some work in America soon?
I'm planning, actually. So I'm really keen to go to America to do some shots and probably to visit the Tucson show in the meantime. It will take at least a month to get there, and it's worth to go there for a month because I'm also planning to take a look around in Arizona and maybe to Utah. Absolutely. But yes, mainly in Europe. And I have a few clients in Germany and in also including Hungary, Slovakia, and a couple of guys who I met and who we became actually friends, because it's more about, these relations are more about trust and mutual interest. And the sending pieces is a bit tricky because I'm working from home usually, but and not only me, but the collectors are rather taking the photographers on site than sending the photos with a FedEx or any courier service.
Yeah, you got to travel to them. Speaking of clients in Germany, here's a shot of a piece that, of a specimen that Gerhard is very famous for. Here's a tourmaline. Tell us about this shot. I love this.
Gerhard had another shot from the other side of this piece by another very good photographer, James Elliott. And yeah, I have to tell you, Brian, that I have a couple of icons in mineral photography who I just really look up for, and he's one of them. And of course, I can grab a lot of names in this business, and including I don't want to go in details, but it is a big challenge to get into the same level and making a comparable photo to the previous photographers.
Absolutely.
But
The bar is set very high.
yes, the standards are very, very high. And I really hope that one day I will be able to get into that level, like James or Jeff, or I can make a lot of examples, but I don't want to hurt anyone to forget the name, so I just rather don't mention too many of them.
Exactly.
But
No,
yes, this has a lot of different colors and colorization, and of course the inner core is about between a pink and the red, and it was a little bit hard to get into that color, but thanks for that Gerhard's lighting, I was able to do it, and I really hope he was happy with the result.
Well, I'm sure he was. Let's take another look at a tourmaline here that is just a fantastic piece here.
Yes, it's photographed for another German friend of mine. He is known as Mineral Andy, or his name is Andreas, and this is from Paprok, the Afghanistan locality, and this is also a very nice piece, which has a lot of different colors. Shooting tourmalines in general is not that easy, because showing the nice color with the transparency and the geminess with the reflections and the striations is pretty challenging. So I'm very happy with this piece. I hope the owner of this piece feels the same.
Hey guys, just a quick question. Can we have dimensions or approximate dimensions on those pieces, please?
I think in the description, Brian has it.
I don't have those descriptions in front of me, so let's just say it's bigger than the thumbnail.
It's definitely bigger. It's about 10 centimeters or 12 centimeters high, as far as I remember.
Right.
So it's a massive piece. It was heavy, and actually holding in hand these very precious, very expensive pieces makes me sometimes an extra heartbeat, because if I drop it.
Been there, done that.
So yeah, actually turning into serious, a mineral photographer should actually have a insurance, yes, which helps you in difficult circumstances. But I hope it's never going to happen, and I'm very curious to handling these extraordinary pieces. It's just not just the value of them, but it's a value. It's not just the price, but it's a value for the collector. It's unpayable.
Exactly. Hey, let's go on to, this is the theme for the past Denver show that we just finished, fluorite. I love the color zoning in this. This is an incredible piece. Tell us a little bit about this.
It's photographed for the same collector, Andres, but he's sold since, and now it's an Andy Ford collection, and this is a lovely piece. What I love about is just the balance between the orange and the purple color, and it looks like burning from inside. It's like a lava. It's like not comparable with any fluorite I've ever photographed. And it's shiny, although in the pattern on the sides, you can see those interesting growing pattern of cubes, and it is a fantastic piece with the shine, with the reflections, and it was a fun to photograph this. And it has a very strong backlight to make this piece looking live from inside. I love this.
One of those pieces that just stop people in their tracks. I mean, it's so attention grabbing.
It is.
Let's look at another fluorite that you have here. This is just such powerful, great color.
It is, and it looks almost black when you hold in hand, but with a strong backlight, you were able to see this very intensive color zonation. Like there is a very dark core, and there is a much lighter zone, and the very dark purple zone around. So it's also a very unique piece from Elmwood, and yeah, I love this piece as well. And it's quite a huge, like I think it's like 6 centimeter or 5-6 centimeter cube. So it's very rare to get one of these pieces from that mine without any damage out. So it's
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to jump around a little bit. Let's talk about this piece right here.
okay. We are in Malkan, one of the best rubellite locality in the Siberia. And it's also a friend of mine, Gerhard's piece, and giving this extraordinary deep fuchsia or magenta color back is very difficult because most of the sensors are not capable to get this color back. Canon, for example, is not really sensitive for that, but there are some cameras are capable to get the color in the right hue and saturation. And most of it, if you look under a warm light, looks red. But in like a sunlight temperature bulb, or if you put it under the sunlight, they come into these very pinkish red colors. It's just amazing. And the luster and the striation and the gemminess surrounding with this white, like almost like a wings of albite, it makes this piece unforgettable for sure. I love it.
Well, now, László, you mentioned something interesting, and we're getting a little bit off topic from just looking at photographs, but I think this this warrants a little discussion. You said that like the Canon sensors aren't so sensitive to the magenta there. So yes. What camera system do you use, and why do you feel it's better for certain shots versus a Canon? You had mentioned that you had a lot of Canon in your past, but now yes. You're working with other gear.
Well, actually, I still have the Canon set up for myself for different purposes, but it strongly depends on the sensor size. For example, as small as your object is, the smallest sensor size you should use in the highest resolution available. That's kind of opposite working in the other way around. So if your specimens are big, like let's say bigger than a centimeter or two, you're better to use a high resolution sensor in a bigger size. For example, what I'm using at the moment, most of my job is a medium format camera called Hasselblad. It's actually a Swedish corporation, and they were the first cameras sent up to the moon, as you mentioned in our previous conversation. This camera is actually, it has much higher sensitivity for different colors and for light as well, because the diodes in the sensor are way much bigger. The sensor itself is about 70% bigger than a normal full frame camera, which means that you're allowed to shoot in better color details, in better details in general. But it not just depends on the camera sensor, but it strongly depends on the lens resolution as well. Mm-hmm. For example, if I can show the camera I'm having here with me, this is a Hasselblad X1D. This is the same camera as far as I know Malta sticking you're using, or yeah, one of the best mineral photographer. And I went into it because I pretty much like the bigger sensor. And if I reattach the lens, it's very obvious that the sensor is way much bigger. So this is my thumb here, and the Leica sensor, which is a full frame sensor, it's 70% smaller than this one.
Right. So
So this is
so that our viewers understand, when we talk about camera gear, typically when we're talking about DSLRs, kind of the hot word right now is full frame sensor, and that the size of that sensor is basically the size of a 35 millimeter piece of film, and so it's a much smaller sensor. When we go to Hasselblads, traditionally, and that has always been considered a small format. Then you had medium format, which was 2¼ inches, and then you have large format, which is 4x5 and 8x10 size film, and this is in the film world. Same has kind of transferred over into the digital world, where a full frame sensor is still kind of considered, if you make an analogy with the film world, that's still a small size sensor. When we go to the Hasselblad, like László's working, you have a much bigger sensor. So as László was saying, you have bigger diodes that can collect more light. You have you have higher resolution. You have greater sizes of the sensors. So it works better in terms of low light. It gives you a higher dynamic range.
exactly.
Plus, the lenses are a big deal. Hasselblad is so famous for having some of the best glass on the planet. And if you look at some of the new mirrorless cameras that are coming out there, like the Canon R5 and R6, those are approaching a lot of the statistics of the Hasselblad. But what we're finding is the traditional lenses used on the cameras, like the L series lenses for the Canons, the new sensors are pushing beyond the capability of those lenses. And
That's
so
true.
the Hasselblad lenses are so fine from the very beginning that you're not running into that kind of that ceiling there. So there's so many different benefits for shooting medium format that we're starting to see some of it here, going back to this image where, László, it sounds like you couldn't, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, you shot this with the Hasselblad.
I think so, yes.
Okay. And so it was the
I'm still
Hasselblad.
using my Canon, but most of the time I'm using the Hasselblad.
Okay, yeah. Terrific. So sorry for that kind of technical divergent, but I think it was important. Let's go on to look at some more minerals. I've seen these in person. I love this set. Tell us about this.
Oh, the Jackson 5. If someone have ever seen this collection, knows that that means. And this is a very unique set of tourmalines from Paprock mine, and I barely shoot anything on display on a basis, but I made an exception based on what we discussed with Gerhard, because these are like a handmade, I think it was made by a dentist from Pakistan or Afghanistan, made these unique, I think silver stands for these this group of minerals coming from the one pocket, and they are just gorgeous. I've seen very similar tourmalines from Paprock, but the set of this is very unique. And now I'm not using glass anymore because it gives a double reflection if you see the reflections on the bottom. But that was the time when I used glass for some reasons. And but although I did it, I'm very happy with the results, because this very intensive green and paired with the pinkish core gives us a very, very nice picture of what we've seen, what we could see in life of these very, very fantastic group of tourmalines. I love them.
László, I'm sorry, I lost audio for a second. So until that comes back, I'm assuming you can hear me. Let's go on to the micro section and talk to us about this.
I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah, sorry.
We can hear you, László.
It was on my side.
So probably, yeah, macro shooting, or micro actually, because we are under sometimes a millimeter frame width. And actually, this requires a total different setup, total different lenses, cameras, and as I mentioned before, as the piece is getting bigger, you're probably getting better with a bigger sensor. But for the macro or micro shoots, where you have sometimes an object under a millimeter, you have to use a much smaller sensor, but with a high resolution. Why is that? Because the object what you're shooting should go into the sensor as the same size as the sensor it is, or even a bit smaller to get the same image what you require. And of course, the images are usually cropped a little bit, but they are very, very, very small. So for example, this piece, I think it's not more than a 2 millimeter, or even less than 2 millimeter in the picture frame width. So it means that the crystal is 1.5 millimeter or so. I'm not sure exactly. But I probably mentioned the stacking photography before, which means that if you use a lens, a macro lens or a micro lens, which is actually taken from a microscope direct for this purpose, is very, very shallow, like a sharp, like a knife shallow or a blade shallow. And to get this relatively large depth of field or very wide depth of field, you have to take a lot of shots and stitching together with a special software.
Right.
And to get that, you have to take a lot of steps. Like, for example, in a normal size, like 10, 15 centimeters piece of mineral, I usually take 10, 15, 20 shots. But for these micro shots, you have to go under 200, 300, 400 of each of initial shots, work them out on the same way. Like there are some certain softwares to do that. And there is a software teaching all the sharp parts of the images together, giving you a very good depth of field to have this image looking like a crystal, not just like a piece of very blurry stuff.
Absolutely. And for the viewers wondering what this is a Romanian linerite. And
one of the most intensive blue minerals, like a lead, copper,
absolutely incredible
sulfate
color.
Yes.
And now, László, I know with the Hasselblad, there's a certain amount of in-camera stacking that you can do, which is very unique, I believe. But this was not done using that, considering you took a couple hundred photographs that you had to stack, right?
Exactly. So that feature makes the life much easier, to be honest. If I'm shooting with a Hasselblad in relatively big objects, but if I go under a millimeter or 2 millimeters, I have to use an electric rail, which is connected to my phone or my tablet or my laptop via Bluetooth, and I can set up the length of the object or of the track of the rail must done, and dividing by the steps, and it gives me a number, and I just leave the camera working the photographs out, and it's mostly automated process how it's done. But
someday we might have to do a follow-up to see how that actually works. Hey, László, we're kind of starting to run low on time, so I want to get through a lot more of the images here. So I'm going to start moving a little bit quicker. From blue, let's go to red. This is a fantastic perovskite from Morocco, 11 millimeters. Tell us quickly about this.
Oh yeah, these perovskites are semi-metallic minerals, so it needs a very harsh light from behind to get these intensive red flames out from the relatively opaque minerals out. And this is a recent find from Bouazer, Morocco, and most of them are coming with calcite, giving a fantastic contrast with these deep red crystals. But it's challenging to photograph them to give the perfect balance between the red and the inner reflections and the outer metallic luster. So I really love to photographing these pieces.
This is a great piece. Okay, from this, we're going to hop on over to kind of some of the shapes that you enjoy. And let's take a look at this amethyst from India.
Yeah, it's one of the cheapest purchase ever in my life. Had something like reached 430,000 people on Facebook, some incredible numbers. And yes, it's a very simple but very aesthetic piece of scepter amethyst cluster from India. And giving the shape of the scepter is only really possible if the neck or body, or how can we consider this thinner part, is very separated from the head or the top of the crystals. And it's just perfectly happened in this piece, because the top is amethyst and the bottom is clear, like clear quartz crystal. I love this piece.
Fantastic piece. Just great balance on that. Absolutely love it. And it's almost like it's standing on its tippy toe. Speaking of tippy toe, let's look at this anatase from Pakistan that is so delicately balanced and just fantastic. Tell us about this one.
Anatase is one of my favorite minerals. I don't know why, but I'm just really sticked on titanium minerals. And this piece was waiting for me for so long, because I wanted to have one of those with a blue inner reflections, because anatase is usually very opaque, but some of them, especially in a small crystals, they have red or blue inner reflections. And it was really hard to get the balance between the shine, the luster, and the inner color. I probably will make another shot showing this blue glue from inside. Balancing this piece was not easy, because it is a very sensitive one, and I had to use a fishing net, but fishing line, like those plastic fishing line.
Yeah, the monofilament, we call it.
Yeah, to glue on the other side and retouch later from the photo.
Oh, this is a great
one of the tricks, yes.
Yeah, one of the tricks of the trade. All right, let's look at one other image from the shape catalog, and this is almost the Gerhard Wagner show. But here's a aquamarine with Shoral from Namibia.
The termination of this aquamarine is just fantastic. It's very unique. I mean, what I like this piece is because the contrast between the light blue, like icy blue, and the real dark, opaque Shoral is just really challenging, because if you compensate the dark parts with like pulling the lights up, then you have the light parts burning out. But if you do the other way around, you have a very dull and dark, no details in the short section. So it was taken from two shots and compiled together, giving some details in the dark and also in the highlights, saving the details there, and showing the reflections, the shine, and the luster on the crystal, and having a kind of view inside what is happening in the aquamarine.
Well, you bring up a very interesting point, because some people might say that that's cheating because you're not representing something that you actually see. But my response to that is that the dynamic range of a camera at best is 15 stops. So that's 15 different shades of gray between pure white, above which the sensor can't read, and pure black, below which the sensor can't read. So there are 15 distinct stops between that. The dynamic range of a human eye is vastly more than that. I don't know what the exact number is, but I would say it's in the range of 1,000 stops, probably more. Maybe there's
not that much, but yes, and your eyes are able to get the right transition between the shades.
Yeah. So you can see the transitions more. So it's not, the photograph is actually more closely representing what the eye would see if you were actually there in person. So for those people who are saying, oh, that's pure Photoshop fake manipulation, I would ask them to consider this other perspective when they comment.
Even Michael Bainbridge did the same with Proustite crystal from Germany.
Exactly. Michael Bainbridge, another great photographer. Laszlo, I'm going to switch over to textures because this is one topic that I think is absolutely fantastic. Let's talk about this. This is it's a Heliodor, obviously from Volodarsk, and just the incredible etching on this particular piece blows me away. I've seen a lot of these Heliodors over the years, but I've never seen a piece with such sharp, pronounced, extruded edges like this. It's absolutely fantastic. This is one of my favorite shots that you sent us. Tell us about
thank you. Well, I love these etched surfaces, like these patterns. It just blew my mind when I saw this. It's from my other friends. He's a Czech, and he's living in Czech Republic, but he's a Russian guy called Konstantin, and he's one of his collection of piece. And this is amazing indeed, giving the details of this edged surface or edged texture requires a lot of backlighting and side lighting without giving too harsh front lighting, because when you have a good view inside the crystal, you can see the gemminess of it. But if you're just using too much light from the front, you lose the transparency. Although it's not really difficult to shoot these kind of crystals because they have a lot of reflection on the surface, which can give the texture back perfectly, and the colors, of course. It's very typical color for this Volodarsk piece.
It is such a wonderful piece. From there, I want to go to another texture image. This is an incredible piece. We're going to see the texture, a close-up shot of this in one moment. But before we take a look at the close-up shot of the texture of this, I want to point out this is a very large piece of gold. This is a Romanian
centimeters, I think.
This is incredible.
Yeah, this is from an old collection.
No, I hadn't corrected the first. Go ahead.
So this is a collectional piece. We just released the book recently with a friend and a professor of mine, former professor from the Miskolc University. And this is a Roche Montana gold from the old times. And we had in the Miskolc University collection, which is inherited from the old Šemnic, like Banská Štiavnica these days, collection in Slovakia. And this is a very unique piece because, as you mentioned, the pattern of the gold showing those small gold crystals is just mind-blowing, I think. Yeah. If you go in details, yeah, exactly. I mean, these triangles, faces of octahedron are just really amazing, makes this piece just very unique.
I love this piece. And I think it's important also to mention that this piece, it's 65 millimeters wide, which is like, it's a little over 2.5 inches wide. It's quite a large piece. It's fantastic.
I'm much better with metrics, but yes, thanks.
Well,
thanks for turning.
While you were talking, I had to do the conversion on my app. So let's have full transparency here. I'm not that clever. Okay, yes. Let's go to transparency. This is a very, very difficult thing to do because you're always playing with the darkest black and the specular highlights beyond which there is no detail. So to be able to place all the values within the limits of your camera is a tough job. Tell us about this piece.
Okay, so when I first hold this piece in my hand, I thought, okay, it's a quartz crystal. What is that about? And I just immediately observed the very high double reflection, there's what is a calcite very famous about.
Right.
And I just observed, okay, this is a calcite crystal instead of quartz, but looks like quartz. And it's very transparent, like Icelandic spath, which is a optical variety of calcite. So it is really, really transparent. And the hardest part of the job is to give any form to the transparent minerals, including these calcite crystals. And you have to find a perfect balance of highlights and the reflections with the transparency. It wasn't that easy because, as I said, the optical features of the calcite gives you a kind of a double reflection or like a doubling effect,
Exactly.
which makes the life pretty hard. So that's why it has some like looks a bit like a unsharp image, but it's very sharp. Just this feature,
almost tricks the eye into thinking that it's not in focus.
Yes, exactly.
And this piece is from China, and that's 53 millimeters high. And again, cheating and using my little conversion app that tells me it's just a little bit over 2 inches high.
Yes.
Okay,
and to be honest, just left a little shine on the right side to give you a little, yes, that's it. Because the calcite breaks the light beam into colors, just like the prism, and works like a prism. And I never used to do this, giving a harsh light, but I made an exception with this piece to give this little starry effect on this side.
I look at that as the calcite winking at us. So great.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at this quartz, this Italian quartz. Tell us about this.
Okay, this is a piece of from my collection. I was struggling to get the best angle from this. It's from Carrara, and this locality is very famous of its absolutely transparent, perfectly optical clear quartz crystals sitting in marbles cavities, and even the bottom and the top of the crystals is perfect. No even a crack or nothing in it. But because of the background, the marbles texture is like very sugary, very harsh. It was really hard to find a good angle to get the transparency and the shiny surfaces, like the perfectly lustrous surfaces of the quartz crystal shown on the same picture. So I tried to make from different angle. Like the next photograph is from the same pieces. Yes, exactly. So I found this one is slightly better, although it doesn't show that black transparency, which shows you the clearness of the crystal. But the shape of the crystal and the balance of the piece is much better shown in this picture, in my opinion, but changed my mind.
Well, no, I think, László, that you're right on. The symmetry of the quartz, the top part of it versus the bottom part is so apparent here. And technically, I believe this is the harder photograph to shoot, because here you have the quartz and you have the black background. So a lot of it drops out and you're not worried too much about overexposure, except maybe where the quartz is attached to the marble there. But here, the specular highlights are so close to being blown out. You maybe have a little bit of, complete blowout in there, but that's totally acceptable. And the fact that you have, some gray shades right in the middle there. Technically, I think this is a much more difficult photograph, and I really, really love this one.
Can't agree more. Thank you very much, Brian. Yes, I like to keep some details in the shots, but sometimes a bit overexposure gives you a little bit better impression of the clearness of the luster of the crystal.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna launch the poll because we're coming close to the top of the hour. László, you can close that screen. You're not supposed to read that, and I can see that little
yes,
Cheshire cat grin on your face. So just close the poll. Let's go on to this one. We're still in the same Carrara quarry in Italy, and
yes.
I love the aesthetics of this shot and the background.
So in comparison with the previous piece, this is a much easier shot, because although there was only one angle where I could see this perfect transparency with a lot of luster on the sides, on top of the crystal, but actually this was very much better shot. It was just a comparison that sometimes the nature does the job, what you don't have to have a chance when you have a kind of piece like the previous one. So there's this also very transparent, also the same mineral, the same locality, everything's the same. Like even the overexposed or overexposed top faces are the same, but just the overall balance and the aesthetic of this piece for me is very much better.
I think it's great. And, you know, when people say overexposure, I think sometimes think of it almost as a mistake, and it's not a mistake at all. When you go into that pure white, that very often it's a design choice, and it's perfectly acceptable to have areas of your photograph that are blown out because there is no texture in it, and it's fine. But that being said, even though from afar it looks blown out, when you zoom in, you actually still have texture in those top faces. And, you know, that's one of those attentions to detail that really kind of separates the neophyte photographers from the people who have been doing this for a while. And again, kudos to you, László. Great job, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy to zoom into these photos because otherwise you just can't really observe the details. And the high resolution photography is all about details. If you see something on the social media, like on my website or Instagram or Facebook page, you're just not able to see these details, unfortunately. But in a print or in a high magnification, you're able to. And that makes, I think, also the difference.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple shots because we are kind of at the end of the show, and that's why I always call this an hour-ish interview, because we're going to go a little bit over, but I want to talk about this stuff, so let's talk about this. Tell us about this piece, and we're in the ultraviolet section now, so tell us about this piece, and then we'll go on to the version of this shot under UV. This is a selenite from Hungary, from your home country.
Yes, this is from the same locality as I started to do any mineral collecting, but that time I found very much worse pieces. Then this came recently, and I just found, actually a friend of mine showed that these selenite crystals have the perfect hourglass shape UV reactive zone in the center of the crystals. And it's very, very interesting because if these crystals are freshly out from the ground, they show very intensive blue illumination, which is shown in the next photo, I hope.
Well, it is, and let me just comment that this is why I wanted to focus on this particular one, because just as you say, I know what the next photograph looks like, and I'm amazed by it because you turn on the UV and you have that hourglass shape in the middle there, and it's not just a change of color of the mineral fluorescing. There is something going on where all of a sudden there is a marked difference in the image. So is there any explanation for that phenomenon?
We are just working out. And it's definitely something with the inclusions, mostly organic inclusions, because they are changing with the time. When you're just freshly out from the ground, they are blue, and by time they're turning yellow or white and yellow later. So I have some crystals found like over 10 years ago, and they are just almost yellowish, glowing yellowish. And they also have phosphorescence. So after the irradiation of UV disappears, they keep glowing like greenish yellow. So there's something about organic inclusions inside the crystal in a very specific orientation.
This is so cool. I dig this so much. All right, I'm going to jump to some of the new files that you just sent me yesterday. And the first one is this fantastic tourmaline. Tell us about this.
Yeah, sorry if someone has already seen on my...
I did notice that was on your Facebook today.
So yes, it was a kind of a surprise. I just got this back from the lab very recently. And this is a relatively new find from Morocco. reminds me very much from the Albert kind of tourmalines, albaites, and they are also from very similar geological environments or circumstances. And the very small transparent or translucent top bit on the top makes this really remarkable, this piece really remarkable. And this golden, shiny zone just under the top is it became one of my very favorite piece since the time I've get seen first. So yes, this is the latest acquisition in my collection.
Well, you remember when we were talking yesterday, when we were looking at these images, to me, the thing that jumped out is I love that clear band of tourmaline right at the close to the terminations of each one of those crystals. And I don't know if you posted this photograph on Facebook. I know you posted this one.
This one, the other one is probably on the Instagram.
Okay. But to zoom in and to see that transition, first of all, as you said, that kind of very warm yellow orangish transitional zone right there where it goes into that color. And then on every single one, you've got different bands, but then you have that perfectly clear band. I think that's absolutely fascinating. I love that. That is so cool.
Another thing that you could probably observe is the relatively shallow depth of field. It's just taken from one photo, so it's not a stitched or stacked photo. I try to go down in aperture like 36. I think that was the
so that was a pretty small
narrowest aperture on the Hasselblad. And what I've seen on my Canon, like under f9 or f10, some kind of distortion start to appear. And with the Hasselblad, we don't need to worry about this phenomena. It doesn't give you any diffraction. It just
absolutely. Plus, you have some, you have issues of chromatic aberration a lot more with the smaller censored cameras, and that's where you have kind of colored noise in between the transitional zones between the light and the dark, and you tend to have a lot less of that with the larger format digital cameras. So,
and it's something more about the lenses, but yes,
exactly.
It's not much to do actually. It's not a big deal because with a lot of softwares you can deal with it, but it's much better to live without it for sure.
Exactly. Okay, let's go to another one that you sent me here. This is a great piece. This is absolutely fantastic. Tell us about this piece.
This is from a friend of mine, László Kupi's collection. It's a nice Uchichakwa. Am I pronouncing right? It's very hard to say.
Yes, it is correct.
You did it great.
From Peru. And what makes this piece amazing is the really harsh contrast between some kind of raspberry red rhodochrosite with the velvet black background. And the crystal pops up perfectly. And actually, with the purpose, I made the background so dark and less detail. I left less details and didn't pull up so much to make the crystal popping out even more.
I mean, right there, that close-up shot. I mean, it really. I think the contrast between the very vivid color of the rhodochrosite against the matrix there, which is so dark, and you can actually see some of the color from the rhodochrosite reflecting off the shiny surface of the matrix there, just really makes that an incredible shot. I mean, fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, I've saved this one for last because this, as I understand, is actually a self-collected piece.
Yes, it's not everybody have seen a lot of Labradors in their life. I bet. Most of them are Polish though. And when I came here in Norway, where I'm working at the moment, I didn't expect to find anything interesting. But there was a small quarry next to a place where we were drilling, and I had to wait till we get the end of the hole. And I had about 1.5, 2 hours left. So I visited that quarry and found amazing pieces of labradorite, like a special iridescent variation of anorthite, which is included in the anorthosite, the rock itself. It's a very basic rock, and they give you a very harsh and very strong iridescent color of blue and greenish blue, with a very nice zonation of showing the crystal growth and the crystal shape. So I was very glad to have this and photographed as a self-collected piece. I was really wondered to find those labradorites.
That's fantastic. I love self-collected pieces, and that's pretty much why I saved that one for last. And you had some other self-collected ones, and we just don't have time to get to all the photographs. But László, what an incredible show. We are past our hour mark, which is typical. So right now, it's time for the quick fire 5 questions. Are you ready, László?
I am ready.
Okay, you know how this is. We've asked the audience 5 questions, and they have answered predicting what you might guess. All of your answers are correct. We're going to see how well the audience do. Okay, so
go ahead.
You're going to just respond immediately. Whichever one resonates most strongly with you. Are you ready?
Yes, please.
Question number 1: summer by the beach or by the mountains?
Is there a question for geologists? Of course, mountains.
True enough. Okay, veggies. Do you like your veggies pickled or fried?
Ooh, you probably know that Hungary is very traditional about pickled veggies, but I'd probably go for fried.
Fried veggies, right on.
Barbecue.
You might have heard this one. Hot cocoa or spiced rum?
Oh yes, rum.
Rum, okay, without hesitation.
And without spice as well.
Hey, I'm gonna bring some Hawaiian rum to the Fine Mineral Gallery, where I have a new studio in Tucson. So come on by. We'll have some.
I get a visit.
Yeah, you have to. Okay, camera, Nikon or Hasselblad?
Hasselblad. I never used Nikon. It's just too difficult for me.
Okay, there you go. And final question: ore specimens or aesthetic specimens?
Aesthetic, absolutely.
Aesthetics. Ah, interesting. Okay. Eloise, are we ready with the viewers' answers?
Yes, we are. I'm wondering if Raquel wants to do it.
I was wondering if the lights went out at Eloise's house, but there she is.
Yeah, I guess I do that, then you do the questions.
Okay, all right. Question number 1: summer by the beach or by the mountains? László chose by the mountains. What did our viewers say?
By the mountains, 75%.
By the mountains. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, veggies, pickled or fried? László went with fried. What did our audience say?
Pickled.
Pickled.
You know, Hungarian is more.
Okay, hot cocoa or spiced rum? László went with the rum.
Spice rum.
Okay. Nikon or Hasselblad? László went with the Haas.
I think everyone was really into the conversation, so 92% Hasselblad.
Ooh, good job.
Huge number.
And the final question: ore specimens or aesthetic specimens? László went with the aesthetics. Not surprisingly, what did the viewers say?
Exactly, aesthetics.
Aesthetics. That's 4 out of 5. Okay.
Awesome.
So today's gift: all you viewers get a free photograph done by László Kupi.
Actually, I'm willing to offer one lapis calendar, which is compiled from my photos this year.
Oh, cool. Okay. So we have one lapis calendar that László will give to someone, the first person who can answer the following question in the chat window. What should the question be? Eloise, you make up the question. They have to come up with the correct answer to one question in the chat. What's the question?
Ooh.
What was the blue mineral, blue micro mineral that we talked about earlier?
Nice.
Jonathan Clegg. Jonathan Clegg already responded. Lina Wright.
That was quick.
We have a
Bob
winner.
Hayes was second.
Okay, please send me your address, and I'm going to send you the calendar.
You have to sign the
Okay.
calendar, Laszlo.
Sorry?
You have to sign the calendar.
Yes, of course, I will. As soon as I get it, because it's probably going to be released in the Munich show. So
Okay.
it's going to be a few weeks more, but I hope you will be patient enough to get it.
So sign the calendar and then take your daughter's foot, put it on an ink pad, and have her sign it with her foot as well. So,
You know, I'm very happy that Jonathan won this the calendar, because he was the one asking you a question about your pictures. Can we have them at lower or medium resolution for screensavers or computer wallpapers? So he was
Well,
totally
actually,
like looking forward to trying to have one of your pictures close to him.
I'm very glad to hear this. There is a website of mine which you can visit, and I think the resolution is like 2048 pixels longest. So it's probably perfectly fit with an average screen, and you can use them all, of course. Yes, please feel free. Or if you have any specific requests, just contact me. And don't forget to send your address, please.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Shall I continue with the questions then?
yes, please.
Okay, Robert Cook first asked the question when we didn't even begin the interview yet, so I'm going to ask it first. What is your preferred focus stacking software that you're using?
I'm using Helicon and Zorin, but Zorin looks a bit better for me because it has a lot of settings which I can make better for each shot.
Okay, thank you very much. And Niels was asking, what are your favorites and least favorite minerals to photograph?
Oh, good question. You have seen that transparent minerals are pretty tricky to shoot, so I don't really love them. But tourmalines probably are my favorite, although I shot a lot of tourmalines already because that was the mineral voted as a mineral of the year in 2019 in Hungary. So I shot like hundreds of them already. I still love them.
All right. Barbara was asking the question about metamerism. Is metamerism considered in photography and or printing mineral photos?
Oh, good question. Mainly printed.
Okay. So, but you know, like you have some minerals, depending on what is the main coloring agents, you will have different aspects regarding the camera. So I think that probably affects the way you take pictures of some minerals. No, I don't know,
Yes.
like azurite and lazurite, or all the copper minerals versus other.
Yes, there are some
Chromium,
really
like that.
hard ones, like copper minerals are including, and emeralds, for example.
Yeah.
But I think whoever started to do or tried to do any mineral photography, they realized that dioptase are never get the into the same color what they really look like. And I'm planning to do some film shots, like Brian mentioned that there are some other formats exist, including normal film and medium format, which is a bit higher resolution. I mean, higher size, bigger size than the digital version. And of course, the large formats are like 10 by 12 and 9 by 10 and things like that are just really challenging to work out in color. Like developing them and magnifying them could be really good fun. At some point, I would go for that. And there are a lot of other plans on the bucket list, which I really keen to go for.
Excellent. Thanks for answering that question. Next question. Do you use flashlights, LED, etc., that stand behind the mineral and shine through it towards the photo camera? I guess you answered that question.
Yes, I do. I do have actually a couple of fiberglass lights, which are attached into the flashlight. And it is very focusable, like giving a very narrow beam can shoot into even a millimeter size crystal.
Okay, thanks. And that was just a comment after that. Your orange looks like Olafur Eliasson, the Danish Icelandic artist. little son.
Oh, thanks.
That's a comment.
If it is a compliment.
And he was asking, I think you said you stopped using glass as base because of the double reflection. So what are you using instead?
I keep it in secret, but actually, there are some materials gives you a single reflections, and it's a kind of a secret which I'm revealing now. But black acrylic is one of them.
Black acrylic?
Yes, that's very soft. You need to be very careful to use that because even a very soft mineral can scratch it. Yes.
And last question in the Q&A, what is the best way to photograph metallic minerals, is asking Anna.
Oh, yeah, very good question.
Yeah.
You need to have a very, very soft light because the metallic luster gives you a blown on surface immediately when you have a harsh light. But if you give a very soft light, like a light modifier, and the light source far enough from the object, then and the modifier as close as possible, then the lustrous metallic surfaces won't blow up. In the other hand, you have dark details, dark parts, which you need to give more details. So you need to pull your dark parts of the minerals up. So it's a lot of after process also. It's difficult.
Yeah, these are difficult, especially even with meteorites as well. The shiny meteorites are not easy. Well, I think that's all the questions from the Q&A. Thank you very much, László. A lot of comments, fabulous presentation, great photos. We have a lot of great things.
Thank you very much, all.
If you have the opportunity to read them, that would be great before we close the chat, or maybe Raquel can send you the chat log as well. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. That was great. And looking forward to more great photos.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed the show. Thank you very much.
László, if you don't mind, there is one more question. Someone was asking, you talk about insurance. Do you recommend any insurance company for mineral collections? Do you have any ideas?
I also have to work out the best one because I'm just kind of started to look after the best ones, but it's pretty hard. Also, on whose side should be is a question, because sometimes the insurance could cost more than the rate of the photographers. So it's a pretty hard question, and should probably work out some general rule what should work in the mineral community. And I'm about to reach the other more experienced mineral photographers about this topic and ask some ideas and help about this topic. It's really sensitive topic, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I can chip in my 2 cents from museums, when we bring specimens to exhibits, we carry our own insurance. Of course, then it's door-to-door insurance cover policy, but then I am the only one handling the specimens. So then by default, I am part of the insurance. In your case, is the owner should carry the insurance, but with some kind of closure that if someone else will be handling, they will also be insured under the same policy, because the specimens need to be appraised. So it will be very difficult for you to have an insurance on something that you don't own.
Yes. Thank you, Raquel. It was very, very good and helpful thought. And yes, I will definitely look after, because it seems that I'm going to go to do some on-site shoots very soon. So yes, it's very helpful. Thank you.
And one last question came in. Do you use polarized lights?
No, but polarized filters.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, it sounds like that is it. László, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I always enjoy seeing your work and seeing where you're going. Maybe in Tucson, we got to set up a side-by-side full frame, medium format shootout. So Who knows?
Let's just do that. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us for the show, and thank you for the invitation. It was all my pleasure, and I really enjoyed every moment. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for all the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in again. Have a fantastic October. We'll see you next month where we have another great interview set up for you. So take care. Aloha.
Cheers. Bye-bye.